you have to shave, and you have to do this with your uniforms and stuff like that. And then they were not setting the example by doing what they were telling other people they had to do, they would be out. Out. Okay? Do not pass go. Do not collect $200. I don't care what paperwork I have to fill out. I'll take care of that tomorrow. In the meantime, pack up and get away. Because you are destroying the integrity and the credibility and the trust that you need to have with your men and you're the people under your command. That's leadership. And I know we veered a little bit away from the political stuff with Winston Churchill, but the principle remains the same. Okay? You cannot... And that to me is what's lacking today is the... I had a conversation today with somebody about political leadership, about the leadership in a political party, and they were saying, you have to support this person, you have to support this person. They were trying to convince me, and I said, well, I want to see what rules they're going to apply to ensure that they themselves are accountable. And I was getting all kinds of double talk coming back. Well, we don't want to be divisive, we don't want to be, and I'm going, I don't care. I don't care what the first thing for me, Nick, is not what you stand for. It's what your character is. Because if you don't have decent character, it doesn't matter what you tell me you stand for. You're going to crumble like a cheap, dirty, stale cookie the first time that somebody says something to you. I want character. Character followed by policy. Give me somebody who has a character first.
That says it all in a nutshell. We lack in our society. There is a huge lack of character. How many people think nothing of, and it's always the little stuff, right? Think nothing of if they can cut a corner here or there. Might not be perfectly legal, or it might not be morally acceptable, but they'll do it, because it's an advantage to them. So they'll do that without even thinking about it. And then it goes on to, well, what if I can get away with if I make this decision, yes, somebody's going to get burnt, but I'm going to, I'll put a little more in the bank for me or my family, without ever thinking about what the moral or social or legal consequences of those kinds of situations are. And we see it all the time. And it starts off, right from the very earliest days of a person's life and goes all the way up, especially, and this is how we get corrupt politicians, because you start off with local municipal politicians with big ambitions, cutting corners or doing things or, turning a blind eye to things they should stay up and object to, because it would hurt their chances at promotion and hurt their chances at moving forward. And all this stuff goes on, and before long, it's a whole country. Like, how do we end up with a country full of snitches? People who have called the police. I told you the story about the guy when I was up in North Bay, taking that young lady to her drive test so she could get her license. And the guy lifted his camera and took a picture of her, and she didn't like that, and all because we weren't behaving the way he thought we should behave. There was nothing wrong with what we were doing. He just didn't like it. So he was going to report us to my boss. So, what kind of country have we created? Well, the answer to that is one with no character. And that used to be one of our hallmarks, and it isn't anymore.
And, of course, now we're actually encouraging, whether explicitly or implicitly, in the environment we find ourselves in now with this virus, these, the panic mongering, the fear that we have instilled in the general population, that our politicians have, in order to encourage them to follow regulations with respect to things like wearing masks in particular, where we now have day in and day out people who are literally, like, at a minimum, verbally assaulting other people that they see who aren't wearing masks. And here's the thing, okay, because I know maybe not so many of our listeners, but people out there would go, well, what do you expect? It's dangerous. People have to wear their mask. Okay, but what about people who can't wear a mask for medical reasons? Because there are people out there that can't. What if I happen to have emphysema, for instance, and I have to be wearing an oxygen mask? I can't go into a store because of this, because somebody's going to attack me and say, they call it mask shaming. I call it mask vigilantism. That's what we're encouraging now, and the people who are the most vulnerable to this kind of attack are people who are disabled.
Yes, of course.
There have been stories. There was a story recently. I don't have it in front of me, of a woman recently who actually, she's disabled for whatever reason. She doesn't have any hands, so she can't put a mask on.
I remember that.
She can't put a mask on, but that didn't matter to whoever the knucklehead was that was shaming her and telling her, get out of this store, you can't, you're putting us all in danger. It didn't matter. All that mattered was, you're not wearing a mask, and I'm damn well going to tell you that you have to wear a mask. Okay? And this is the kind of society that we're creating, slowly but surely, where people don't respect one another. All they do is they think of themselves, and the irony of all of this is, this is the result of left-wing progressive ideology, completely dominating our education system and our morals today, if you even want to call them morals. And I'm sorry, I know that sounds, very partisan, but I'm like a referee. I call them like I see them. Okay, like this is what it's come to. Okay, you're so damn.
It's a mighty sad day when we have to say that.
Pardon?
Said it's a mighty dark day when we have to say that kind of thing.
Well, talking about lack of leadership, Nick. Where were our national political leaders? Where was Doug Ford, or where was Justin Trudeau, or for that matter, where was Erin O'Toole when this particular story came out about this woman with no hands? Okay, I mean, they heard about this too. This is common knowledge that this happened. These guys should have been out there at the next press conference. Okay, Justin Trudeau wants to talk about carbon tax, so have your press conference about carbon tax. But before you get into carbon tax, I'd say, you know what? Before I talk about, this is about carbon tax, but before we talk about the carbon tax, I just want to make a statement to my fellow Canadians. Have a heart and exercise some common sense and some decency in the way you react with your fellow Canadian on these issues. Yes, we want people to wear masks, but there are people out there that can't for legitimate reasons. Okay? And you don't know. You don't know the reason why that person is not wearing a mask. So leave them alone. Give them the benefit of the doubt. Treat them with respect and decency. That is something that I would like to hear our leaders say in circumstances like that. But they don't. It's a trivial issue.
Well, good luck finding somebody who'll do that. And that's, I guess, what I've been driving at this whole segment, is that there's no one out there saying the kind of things that you're pointing out.
Well, Nick, it's a real shame because, that is not the society I grew up in. And I I regret that that's the society that my grandchildren are growing up in. Because heaven help us.
Well,
here's something we haven't talked about on our show yet that we should at some point in time very soon, and that is that, we're on the verge of expanding the euthanasia laws here in Canada and the whole program of assisted suicide. Okay? Now, do you think that if you're raising your children today to have such utter contempt and disrespect for their elders, a progressive utilitarian society is what we've created. I'm telling you, you should be afraid. Forget about afraid for the children's future. You should be afraid for your own future, because I don't know how easy it's going to be. I don't know how hard it's going to be for the kids to say, we need those hospital beds. Yeah.
That's a good point, Joseph, and I think it's time we take a break.
Yeah, with that, Nick, we are going to take a break. So, again, ladies and gentlemen, if you're listening to us on the live show, stay put. We'll be back for the final segment in a few minutes. And if you're listening to the podcast, thanks for joining us. And we will catch you the next time here on the Nick and Joe Show on ThinkRadio.ca.